I think it's important to remember the past because it's very important to know where we came from and what we've accomplished. And the examples that we have an obligation to live up to. And when you see a quality product that is part of the past, then it's like being passed a torch, that now it's your turn. Let's see our quality product. And so I think it's very important to preserve those things and to realize how much they mean to us. The building at 244 Park Avenue used to be a well-done brick building. Right now, it's just a flat wall of stucco. Completely 180 degrees different from what it was originally. I had been seeing the building for years, and it drove me nuts. And I finally realized that it's a curse, and I had to do something about it. And so I wound up buying the building, and I'm going to do something about it. Well, the mystery is, what in the world is behind the stucco wall? And tomorrow morning, we're going to break through the stucco, or a little piece of it, to see what's back there so the contractor can determine how to attack the problem. I've had a contractor, a stucco contractor, people look at, they are optimistically saying that the original building was probably just boxed in so that, and stuccoed over the box. And we're praying that that's the case so that we take the box off and the building will be there. But who knows?
So what we've learned is that the glass was taken out of the front structure, the brick sill was removed all the way down to the floor, and then it was all framed in and stuccoed over. Then they stuccoed directly to the brick veneer. This is, I would say, this is probably toward the worst case scenario. We were hoping not to find that they had stuccoed right to the face of the brick, because removing stucco from brick without damaging the face of the brick is difficult and requires some expert folks to do it and even know if it can be done. So we'll start that search.
The town of Lake Wales was founded in 1911, and the city was established officially in 1917. During that time, the main industries that allowed the town to really develop were citrus, turpentine, and cattle. When the railroad came through in the early part of the 20th century, it allowed for the locals to ship in goods and supplies they needed and ship out products to northern markets. The historic preservation of downtown is now underway, thanks to the Lake Wales Connected Plan that is really bringing historic preservation forward. And it's thanks to people like our citizens who are on the Historic Regulatory Board, who are reminding us of those standards and teaching us once again about why historic preservation is so important.
My name is Brandon Alvarado. I'm the board chair for the Historic District Regulatory Board, and this board is comprised of citizens of the Greater Lake Wales area that are interested in historic preservation and seeing the greater historical continuity of our downtown preserved and restored. So one of the goals of the Historic District Regulatory Board is to make the restoration application process as easy and user-friendly as possible, because we want any small business owner in the city of Lake Wales who buys a piece of property in downtown Lake Wales to feel like they can contribute to historic preservation and not feel like there are roadblocks or different items in their way or that the process is too difficult. And again, this film and what Mr. Gibson is doing to show this process is going to make it much more friendly to any business owner, and that's what's really exciting for me and the board.
What we were hoping to find was that we could take the framing out, find the old windows, find the old door openings, and see how the stucco was attached to the building. What we found is that a lot of the stucco was attached to the building but on a wood or gypsum backer board, so we were able to take a lot of it off. The main thing we found is that there weren't 3 openings at the bottom like the 1915 picture. There were only 2 openings. So they've changed the bottom of the building, and so that'll be part of the next conversation. The next step from this point on is kind of to determine what the outside is really going to look like. Probably going to go back to the original 3-store entry, but whether we're able to salvage the existing brick or if we're going to do a new finish on the outside by way of masonry. So a lot of that has to determine on how successful we are with matching the existing brick in size, texture, and color, because there's a lot of brick missing. They took out a lot of brick at the bottom. They took out the whole top rounded pediment. So there's a lot of things that have to be rebuilt back in place. So that's all to be determined on what available materials there are today.
I am Ruben Acosta. I work for the Florida Bureau of Historic Preservation. We're part of the Florida Department of State, the Division of Historical Resources, and I'm responsible for the survey and registration section, which is historic designations. We're also in charge of the Certified Local Government Program. It's a partnership program between state, federal, and local government for historic preservation. We are kind of the middleman. We help connect property owners with the relevant programs that will assist them in conducting a successful rehabilitation. The programs are often offered through and managed by the federal government, so we handle all the paperwork. We provide guidance, initial reviews, recommendations. We are the first people that a property owner would approach about, is a rehabilitation something that's appropriate for my property? How do I qualify for it? How do I apply for it? We answer all of those questions. We then help the applicant go through the process, and we provide recommendations on the projects to the federal government, which then the officials at the National Park Service, they're the ones who then sign off on things for those projects that are taking advantage of the Federal Historic Preservation Tax Credits Program. Otherwise, we are primarily a source of information, technical advice, and people who just may happen to own a historic property that want to know how to do a compatible or appropriate rehabilitation to the property. we can provide guidance on that, provide technical resources, and we also help people in actually doing historic designations so that they can qualify for such programs.
This particular building did have a number of challenging aspects, and as it turns out, they were undercover, and we discovered the challenging aspects as we went along, because the building was covered with a stucco front, and just to hide everything. And my vision was we'd pull the stucco off and there would be the historic building. The challenge was that's not the way it happened. And he pulled the stucco off and there was a changed building entirely with concrete, new steel, everything. So that was a big, huge challenge. And we had to even take away, because it was non-historic, had to take away the bottom layer of the facade, the bottom floor, support the upper floor, while tear it out steel and concrete, and all while supporting the upper floor, and then put it back the way it was historically. Kind of a unique little design in the beginning, and want to keep that, and then put the two together. And that was all accomplished. That was a huge challenge. One of the unique things and one of the challenging things about the renovation was the bricks. They were a little bit oversized. They were different. They're not red bricks. They were not from the South. And nobody knew where they came from. And historically, the historic experts wanted the bricks. We looked and looked, and the contractor had his brick people. They couldn't find it. The brick mason found the brick, and they were still being made. They were somewhere in Ohio, and they're hard, they're a little oversized, they have no holes in them, so when you lay the brick, it just rocks on the mortar for a while. They have to get back and let it harden, and then before they put another layer on. Magnificent brick mason. And he says, you can hardly tell the difference between the 110 years between the two bricks. He says in 5 years you won't be able to tell the difference because the new ones will weather. But that was a huge find. We rejoice, and I've come to love the brick. We would meet each week and over the plans and talk about what we had to do in the sequence that it had to be done. So, and what I was thinking during the course of the time, one of the things I was thinking was what I'd heard a couple of times from contractors way past was, we can do anything. It just costs money. And so that's what you're realizing is happening. And so you kind of keep a mental calculator going, but I'm determined that there's going to be no sacrifice of quality. And so that's where we were. It was difficult, but there would be no sacrifice of quality.
Lake Wales Main Street is part of a national formation of downtowns and business districts that really concentrate on restoration. And bottom line, it is economic development within the context of historic preservation. Now, when I look at 244, East Park Avenue, I look at it with a great smile. And I look at it as a model not only for other downtown buildings in our downtown, but really for the state and for the nation, because it was done right. It was done perfect, and it was all in the details, and the results are there.
As people walk by this building, I hope they take away two things, one of them very personal to me. One is the historic significance of what we have done and the pains we went to make sure that it was exactly accurate. And they appreciate that. And the second thing, which is personal, there's a nameplate at the top of the center of the building, J.T. Rhodes. People say, "You're doing this, you put your name up there." No, it was up there, J.T. Rhodes, and J.T. Rhodes will go back. But if people will look at the steel stairway that comes up from Park Avenue, there's a gate there. And that gate, we worked on its design and everything else. My wife and I have been married 63 years, and it's the Robin and Jean Gibson Gate. That's significant to me. I've been asked sometimes as to whether there were any setbacks in the project. The answer is there was a huge setback. John Olson, who was the general contractor and who we had a good personal relationship, died in his sleep in the middle of this project. His company tried to finish it without him, but he was way too important to his company. And so the company really collapsed, and we were left in the lurch. Now, my family came in, and to rescue their old dad, my son, engineering graduate of Georgia Tech, is a general contractor in Atlanta. So he came back and forth. My other son, who's a property appraiser, he drafted him to be the on-site supervisor, and that's what he was doing. And then the architect remained the same, a guy who grew up with our kids on the same block in Lake Wales. And then the interiors were being done by my neighbor across the street. My daughter, who does art gets art for people, did it for this building, and the aesthetic sense of everything was with the two of them. And then, so we had to put together a whole new team, but this was a different team. This was family and neighbors. And everybody kind of rallied to the defense of their old man and brought this thing to conclusion. That's very significant to me, to overcome that setback and without ever sacrificing quality, and to pull off this result. People have asked me how I felt when we celebrated and dedicated this building. It was a Chamber of Commerce sponsored thing. It was, and I looked out there, I knew fully half of all the people that came and were interested and appreciated the building. It was family and friends for years and years, and the kind of the ceremony of actually cutting a ribbon, and then people cheering and being happy that it was done and available. that was very significant. If I had to sum up the experience and how that would be done, it would be, I knew this project was going to be difficult, but I did not know it was going to be this difficult. And that is what I take from the experience, that the challenge turned out to be greater than anticipated, but we stuck with it. And that personal satisfaction is what is very meaningful to me. And I don't think anybody else, or very few other people, would have been crazy enough to do it.